I was going to do my regular intro like, hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video, but apparently short, snappy intros are the thing now. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at a collection of string libraries that I use on a regular basis. These are the things that I will always consider first when I'm writing for string parts, and we're going to cover not just ensemble strings, but solo strings as well, so we get into the full gamut of the string orchestra. Let's get into it. All right, so as we mentioned, we're going to take a look at solo strings and ensemble strings. I'm going to start with the solo strings first because I typically like going with exposed lines quite a bit for emotional parts, and it creates a sense of intimacy that you don't necessarily get all the time with the more ensemble-based libraries, right? And the first one we're going to start with is a new one from Sonic Cinema, actually the newest library in this entire video at the time of this recording. And it's called the Heritage Cello from Sonic Cinema. Very, very cool. It's like the follow-up to their intimate Legato cello series. So let's have a listen to this. We're just going to hear the legato first, and then maybe run through a couple of these other articulations. So a very warm, very passionate sound. Definitely a lot warmer than the Intimate Legato series, I find. And because this is sort of the next step up, they have all the standard articulations, plus they have different legato options as well. And I like how at the lower velocities, you get more of that portamento slide as well. So this is really sort of the next step from the Intimate Legato series. Let's have a listen to some of these other articulations here. So Tosto. There we go. So just a really beautiful sort of all-rounded library. I'm not going to spend too much time on each one just so you can get a sense of what it sounds like, but Heritage Cello, I think, is a beautiful start to the series. I would love to see this expanded to, viola, violin, and even double bass. Honestly, double bass solo libraries are still lacking in the market, so I would love just to see a really full-fledged double bass sample library from these guys. All right, moving on to an absolute classic, we got Tina Guo's cello library. This legato is pretty much the most recognizable one on the market probably, so let's have a listen. Right, just that classic sound we know and love. And my only complaint with this library to begin with was that there was the lack of an infinite bow option, but they recently updated the library to have that option. The other thing I would have loved is just a higher register as well, because they cap it out at about a C4, as you can see here. But even up to an E or a G, that would have been fantastic for just even more soaring melody lines. Even if they don't play there all the time, it's still nice to have that option in case you need it. Take a look at Heritage Cello, right? Like they go up to an E here. And for the legato as well, this sustains. For performance samples, which we'll take a look at in a second, they actually go up to a high G. So if we take a look, let's see here. Actually a G sharp here, so that's even higher, as you can see, right? But yeah, it's just, I like having the additional range at my disposal if I can. Anyway, let's have a listen to this next one here, which is the Balvi Cello from David Forner. And this is a relatively new library as well. One thing you'll start to note here is that for the solo string libraries especially, a lot of them are sampled with just the one dynamic layer to eliminate phasing and crossfading between different dynamics. Because if we do that, we tend to get some phasing. But with this sort of sampling method, while you only have the one dynamic layer, they can simulate, louder and softer by using your mod wheel to give you a sense of dynamics. But I really do agree with the one dynamic layer approach. Yes, you sacrifice flexibility, but you get a much more musical and natural sounding realistic result. So yeah, great library here as well. And this is a legato only library, just like to the Tina Guo library when it's sold on its own. And the Pacific library, they have a cello legato, which they actually sold Jasper put out a legato freebie for the cello. But let's take a look here at the Pacific Solo Strings cello legato here. So. Sorry about the occasional dropouts there. I've got a lot of libraries loaded up here. But essentially, you can hear how this one is a wetter library. There's definitely more reverb there. And when you have some larger intervals, the transitions are definitely a little bit more pronounced compared to the Vista 2 solo cello legato. It's a lot more neutral, I guess you could say, but it's with the same sort of emotion you get as the Pacific. Right, so just two different flavors of cellos there. And then, this was the freebie that we were hearing for the solo cello legato. Let's have a listen to the paid one from Pacific Solo Strings now. Right, so you still get that nice slurred approach compared to Vista's more, neutral transitions, I guess you could say. And let's have a listen to the violin as well. Yeah, really interesting how this violin patch, it was very light on my CPU actually. The disk percentage was like maybe 10%, whereas for these other performance samples patches, it was like hitting 100 consistently, causing those dropouts. Not really sure what caused that. In fact, the memory here is even higher compared to these other ones. Well, at least these two here, the cello ones. But anyway, let's move on. So yeah, performance samples also has a beautiful aesthetic. Another thing I love about their company and the way Jasper does things is that the instruments are very plug and play. Yes, you have mic positions and different legato things you can tweak, but overall it's very plug and play. Like as soon as you load it in, you can literally just start playing, which is really convenient. And for CSSS, Cinematic Studio Solo Strings, they've got a beautiful legato as well. Let me just demonstrate the viola here for you. Probably my favorite instrument from this library. So yeah, I would probably wager to say that CSSS's solo strings are some of the sweetest that I've ever heard. There are other libraries that might be slightly more expressive, but there's a slightly more creamy, sweet tone to CSSS that I don't necessarily get in a lot of other libraries. Now, that being said, these will not always cut through a mix, right? Because they serve really well as enhancers, like layering tools for, let's say, CSS, the Ensemble library. But if you want something that with a really soloistic style, then some of these other previous libraries we mentioned might be better suited. But in terms of actual background textures that give you just that bit more detail in your ensemble strings, CSSS is definitely a go-to for me. One more I want to end off with here for solo strings is called Soft String Soloists from Fracture Sounds. And this one is different from the rest we just looked at in the fact that it's a lot less romantic and it's a lot more static in a way, but not in a bad way. Let's have a listen. Right, notice how beautiful that sound is. And this library really does live up to its name, Soft String Soloist. Like, even though the dynamic is on par with the other patches we demonstrated, the overall approach, the performing style is a lot more tame, and it really just holds you in that one emotional state. There's a bit of like suspense there, right? If there's an atmosphere that is sort of different compared to the other ones. It's not better or worse, but it's just a different sampling or performance approach, I should say. So those are a lot of the solo strings I would typically use on a regular basis. Again, for more solo purposes, I might use these formal ones like Heritage Cello, Itina, Balvi Cello, and then for more ensemble layering contexts, I would definitely use more of the Pacific, the Vistas, the CSSS, and then this would be sort of a one-off library, the Soft String Soloist, for very specific soft purposes. All right, with that being said, let's move on to the ensemble strings, which is probably what you're really excited about, as am I. And let's start off with an absolute classic, CSS, of course. It's a library I've been using for gosh knows how long now, but let's just have a listen to the violin's legato and you can see why it's still a staple in my template at least. Right, like absolutely hyper romantic, and it's not an aesthetic for everyone. There is no sample library that can please every single person out there, right? Like if you look on VI Control, you could say maybe 85% of people enjoy CSS, but the other 15% don't understand why people like it. Like maybe they think the sound is too harsh or too gritty or whatever it might be, and so they just feel like they can't get a realistic result from it, which is totally fine. It's not for everyone. But for me, CSS has absolutely been a staple in pretty much all my string writing. So every other library I use is sort of an enhancement, like a layering tool, or just a different flavor. And that being said, Spitfire Chamber Strings is another library that I've been using more so recently. Beautiful, beautiful sound, and quite in-depth as well, with lots of legato types and articulations. But in this video, we're mainly looking at legato here, because I strongly feel, personally, that legato is a really great indication of how the rest of the library is. It might not be true in terms of the quality of a library, but for me, I love legato and how it can create realistic musical melodies, because that's the sort of music that I write. So I place a lot of value in great legato. So let's have a listen to the Spitfire Chamber Strings Violins 1 legato here. Right, so the tone is absolutely sweet. It's so beautiful, and it's very similar to the next library we'll take a look at here, Afflatus' Chapter 1 Strings. The scene d'amour patches are for sure the ones I use the most from this library. Again, for the type of music that I write, which is more melodic in nature, I love these sort of patches that allow you to create very musical singing performances. And by the way, if you're interested in learning how to actually use these libraries properly to create convincing mockups, I'll share with you at the very end how you can work with me personally, or some of the programs that you might be interested in for your mockups or composing or anything else. So I'll mention that at the end. But anyway, Spitfire Chamber Strings has an absolutely beautiful tone that I love. And that also applies here for Scene d'Amour. Let's have a listen. Right, just beautiful, right? So this is from Stress Off Sampling. Again, going back to performance samples, we have the Vista library. At the time of this recording, Vista 2 has not been released, which is Jasper's take on the follow-up to the regular or the original Vista, but it's a completely different beast altogether. Anyway, let's have a listen to the cellos. There also is violins and violas and basses and stuff, but I just chose the cellos here. So similar to CSS, Vista is also a hyper-romantic library with accentuated, slurred legato transitions. You can hear how creamy the sound is there. And that's the sort of thing that Vista's kind of known for, is that even though it's a chamber library, like this is only 3 cellos, it sounds quite a bit bigger than that. To me, it sounds like at least 5-6 cellos. So it's a really cool aesthetic that Jasper decided to go with here. All right, another layering library I love quite a bit is Soaring Strings from Musical Sampling. And Aaron does a great job here. This was their very first library I think they ever put out, if I'm not mistaken. And let's see how that sounds. Right, so a much brighter sound and very smooth legato as you might expect, but yeah, I tend to like layering this brighter sound with something darker like CSS or maybe even Vista as well. So that's the whole point of mockups. You can really just experiment and try what works for you. There is no right or wrong answer. And the beautiful thing is, as you experiment and find what you like, that result kind of creates your own signature sound as well. It's not just the chords you choose or the melodies you write, but it's also the samples you pick and the way you decide to orchestrate and arrange using those libraries. It sort of creates your own signature sound, right? So it's pretty cool. All right, and wrapping up with a couple of libraries that I use for additional purposes. Cinestrings Runs is perfect for runs. It's like a follow-up to their Holly Woodwinds library from Cinesamples. And if we take a look, it's right here. So it comes with scales and trills as a patch there. And then there's also a tonal and atonal rips patch there as well. But this is a violins library only. So have a listen to this. Right, so it's really cool. They give you basically from tonic to tonic, dominant to dominant, and they can go up, down, 2 octaves, 1 octave. You have that choice. Sometimes I really do enjoy the dominant to dominant approach because I don't always want to start from tonic to tonic. And then they give this option to you in all 12 keys. They give you different modes as well, like major, harmonic, and natural minor, octatonic, whole tone, chromatic, so different scale types. And you get the trills here as well. Right, so you could get that really authentic performance. That's sort of that Disney sound there. That's really pretty. So really, really cool for authentic runs. And then if I want to create my own custom runs, one library I will continually come back to is Orchestral String Runs from Orchestral Tools. And I believe this was their first library as well from Orchestral Tools. So this is one of those patches called the Runs Transitions patch, but you can also bring up like a, let's see if I can find it here. No, not the whole ensemble, it's the violins. They have a dedicated runs builder patch too. So they recorded little motifs and you can stack those together to create cool runs. But this is the runs transition. So let's have a quick listen. Right, so you hear how those arpeggios I was playing and all the runs, they have a sort of a smeared effect, which makes a lot of sense because in a real life context, these strings aren't going to perfectly play all those notes in like complete intonation accuracy, right? There's going to be some discrepancy, some blurring, and so that's sort of what this library or this patch specifically simulates, and I like that quite a bit. But I do use this library quite a bit for layering purposes or like background textures, not necessarily something to be shown up front very, very closely. So yeah, that's essentially all the string libraries I would use on a regular basis. There's, not actually that many. I know composers who have 20, 30 different libraries they'll use, but to be honest, I've been working with sort of a minimalist approach for a long, long time. And if I can get my work done with even just one developer's set of libraries, I'm pretty happy because I know that I'm essentially guaranteed a cohesive sound without very much fuss. Like it's probably all recorded in the same room, probably processed pretty similarly across the board, and it's probably similar to work with as well. Like CSS, CSB, CSW, they all sort of have the same GUI. So you can literally copy and paste MIDI data and you can get pretty cool performances right away. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. If you've watched all the way to the end, thank you so much. I would love to know which of these string patches, whether it's Ensemble or the solo ones we heard, which one stands out to you the most as the one you could want to pick up, potentially, if you don't already have it, and maybe which one you dislike the most. It's totally fine to share what you don't like as well, and let me know why in the comments below. Which ones do you like the most from this video that you heard, and which ones do you dislike the most? And I did mention in the middle of this video that there's a way to work with me if you like to really take your mockups to the next level. I have a couple of programs that I offer. The first one is sort of a group coaching program that's sort of a mastermind. I work closely with these students on a weekly basis. We go on live calls, we listen to their music, provide feedback, and there's also a WhatsApp group where we can share and ask questions anytime we want. I call that Chris's Inner Circle. If you want to apply for that below, there should be a link in the description there, and you can grab a spot there if you want to apply for that group. And otherwise, I have a couple other programs like Cinematic Music Creation or Virtual Orchestration Mastery. These are like online courses that I've created over the years to help you with your orchestrations, your compositions, if you want to take things at your own pace and you just want sort of an all-in-one program to take a look at. Cinematic Music Creation would probably be the one I would recommend starting with. Otherwise, I'd love to give you a little freebie. It's my sample library buyer's guide, and it contains not only the string libraries I recommend, but also for woodwinds, brass, percussion, pianos, basically anything you might be on the market for. I've included it all in this guide, the stuff that I would personally use, and I've also included the prices, the utilities, so how I actually use those libraries, and it's all contained within this one PDF guide you can download absolutely free, and it's down below in the description. If you want to check that out as a buyer's guide, you can keep it on hand, and I just want to give it to you as a thank you for watching this video today. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.